and welcome to a new Sound Design Monday episode. This is Zen World, and today we are going to be creating this lead. So if you like the lead, make sure to stick around and find out how these big sounds are created. If you didn't, then make sure to check out some of my other tutorials. I'm sure there's some sounds on there that will greatly benefit you guys in receiving and learning how to make. Before we get started, I would like to ask if you guys could please like my Facebook page, www.facebook.com/ZenWorldMusic. I upload all my presets from all these tutorials up on there, and I also have a few sound banks that I have released for free. A few of them, just to name, are containing massive, about 31 sounds, and I have another massive and silent banks, and I also have a bingo players sound bank that I created in memory of Paul Palmer when he passed away. Okay, so let's get straight into creating the sound. So this sound is going to be a little bit all over the place, honestly. Even though I call it a big room super saw, it's actually not a super saw since I'm not using all saw waves. I am going to be using a saw, a sine, and a smooth square wave from in our oscillator section in Massive. And the oscillator section is pretty much where you choose what kind of sound you want. Pretty much it's like choosing a shoe with nothing on it, and then you start modding it from there and you move forward. Okay, so for our first one, we're going to be creating a square saw, and we're going to have that at 2 o'clock. So this is going to have a little bit of square wave, and the wavetail positioning, when you change it, it changes the wave as it goes. And it's kind of like a little neat feature Massive has, and I don't think you can do this in Silent 1. But it's a neat thing with Massive because you can never sound the same if you change the wavetable position. Okay, so next we're going to put the pitch at 0.22. It is a technique that is widely used by almost every producer that creates a big room house. Also trance, and for some weird reason, when you change the pitch a little bit, very minimal, it just makes the sound a little bit wider. That's why you see here like the change in pitch, like very minimal. Now let's put our intensity for oscillator 1 at around 1 o'clock and our amp at 1. Okay, and we're gonna leave this in the center. And next we're gonna go into oscillator 2. We're gonna be applying a sine wave, which sounds really smooth. What we're going to do is we're going to lower that down by an octave. So -12 is going to be an octave. And we're going to put 0.07. Again, the reason, the change in pitch just makes it sound huge. It's a technique that has been used a lot. Next, we go into oscillator 3. We're going to be applying a smooth square wave from the basic section and Massive. We're going to put the wavetable position at around between 12 and 1 o'clock. You guys get to choose. Intensity at 3 o'clock, amp at 2. And we're going to leave the filter router in the center. And next we put the pitch at 0.06. I mean, just a little fun fact, I didn't even know about the pitch technique that a lot of people use until I started buying presets when I was like a few years ago. And the reason I bought presets was, first I started off just thinking, you know, like, oh, I'm just going to use them out of the box. But then I started noticing that it just makes you sound like everyone else, and it doesn't give life to your tracks. So instead, I started seeing presets more as a blueprint that people would sell to you, because pretty much when you open up these sounds, it shows you everything they did in order to achieve that sound. So if you reverse engineer stuff, take off the noise or take off certain effects, and you see what it does to the sound, and then you can start noticing, oh, okay, this does this, this does that. Instead of trying to read the manual or looking for tutorials where they say, the saturator adds harmonic to your signal, blah, blah. And you're like, okay, what the hell is that? It's better to know what it sounds like than to know the technical term of it. That's my philosophy, and it's worked great for me. And I know a lot of people who kind of achieved the graders, like they got better at sound design just from taking that approach. Okay, so next thing we do is we are going to go into our modulation section. We're going to go into the phase, and we're going to send that to oscillator 1. And we're going to put the phase at 3 o'clock. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go into our noise section in Massive. We're going to put some bright noise, which is my favorite type of noise because it covers a lot of the higher frequencies. We're going to change the color knob all the way up. And again, the color knob is just going to pretty much decide what frequency your noise is going to be at. That's what it looks like to me. So if I were to put an EQ on this, and play the noise by itself. I can't play the noise. Come on. There we go. You can see the lower the color, the lower the frequency, the higher it goes. So there we have that. So, oops. So it's good to know that. I mean, I generally leave the color up because it kind of covers the higher frequencies, and it's my favorite type. Same thing with the reverb. I like to have the color a little bit up in the high end, so it doesn't muddy up my mix as much. Okay, so next we go into filter 1. We're going to be applying a low pass 4 filter. Low pass 4, the 4, all it's saying is the type of filter, how much it's going to get rid of. And here we have the cutoff. We're going to put the cutoff at 12 o'clock with the resonance at 10 o'clock. If you guys don't know what resonance is, the best way to see it is through the auto filter from Ableton. The resonance is going to be, you see this here, it's going to be that. So whenever you have your resonance up, you're doing this pretty much to your sound, to your filter, sorry. Okay, so once we have the resonance at 10 and the cutoff in the 12, what we're going to do is, next thing we're going to do is we are going to go into the voicing section of Massive. This is a really, really simple sound to create, which is the nice thing about it, is that's like generally like those big room sounds are really easy to create. They don't really need that much synthesis. You just need to know what you're going to be doing. So here we have the unisono. We're going to put it at 4. And all that's going to do is going to add more voices. So the higher you go, the louder it's going to get. Generally, when you're running 3 oscillators, generally you want to lower the amp a bit if you're going to put a lot of voices, because it tends to get really, really loud. And next, once you apply the 4 unisono, you can start applying some detuning or pitch cutoff, and we're turning that on, and we can turn it, and we're going to put that up to 4, around 4 here. 4 little lines there, and we're going to leave this at 1. Should be like that by default. Next, we're going to make sure it's in polyphon, which is going to let us play more than one note. And then the next setting here is monophon, which is mainly good for basses or any sound you want to just be able to be played by one note. It's really, really a nice feature for that. Here we have the pan position. We're going to set that to full to make the sound more huge and hear it more in the wide on the sides. If you're using headphones, you'll be able to notice it from mono to full. Okay. So once we have this here, pretty much now we're going to go into our envelope 4, which is our which is routed to the amp, and this is going to be the envelope for our amp. So if we go into silent 1, let's go into the bridge, silent 1. Where you at? Here we go. You can see this, the amp envelope here. Well, that number 4 is massive for that. So as you can see. And what I like about Massive, it shows you a visual representation of the envelope, which is a neat thing that Silent doesn't have. Okay, so here pretty much what we're going to do is we're going to have our attack at 8 o'clock, level all the way up. I'm not going to explain what attack, decay, S, and R means. I'm assuming you already know, since I've been talking about it in almost every tutorial, and I kind of want to keep repeating myself on it. If you really need an in-depth look at it, make sure to check out my new trance design tutorials, episode 2. I get really in-depth into it. Okay, so here we're going to put our decay at around 10 o'clock and our level all the way up, which is our sustain knob. And next we have our release here at around 9 o'clock, okay? Next we're going to go into envelope 3, which is going to be routed to our cutoff. And again, we're going to use the ADSR envelope on our cutoff here. So what we are going to do is we are going to have our attack all the way down, level all the way up, decay at 12, level at 12, and our release is going to be set to 9. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to drag the 3 into below the cutoff here in this little square, which is the what I like to call the modulation section, whatever, where you can put these things. So any little box underneath you can modify with an envelope or an LFO. Okay, so once we have with at 12, we're going to click on the 3. Sorry, let me see. Click on the 3, and you're going to drag it all the way up. Okay. So once we have that, we should be done, I believe. We just need to add our effects. So now we're going to go into our effects section. We're going to have a reverb. You can't have a big sound without reverb. We're going to put the dry and wet at around 10 o'clock, between 10 and 11. Size at 11. Density at 10. And our color all the way up. Like I said, usually I like to have my color up. Next we have our delay, which is going to be the normal delay, not the synced one. Dry and wet at around say 11, damp, leave it at 12, time to the left, move it a little bit to the right, and time to the right, move it a little bit to the left, not that much. It's barely noticeable. Next, we're going to go into our EQ. Here we have a low shelf and a high shelf, and just so I show you guys what a low shelf and a high shelf is, this is a low shelf, and this is a high shelf, which is the opposite of that, obviously. Okay, so I can take the EQ out. Okay, so we're gonna do a low shelf to 1 o'clock, the boost to 1, frequency to 1, and a high shelf to 1 as well. And all this is gonna do is just increase the volume. Okay, so once we have that, let's start applying some macros so you guys can do what I did in the when I showed you the sound. So right now what we're gonna do is we're gonna get a macro from 2, and we're gonna put it here, and we're gonna put it here. So let's see. Okay, let's lower the volume a bit. Okay, so we're gonna get the macro 2, we're gonna apply here to the level, and then I'm gonna redo this because it doesn't make sense for that to happen. Okay, so here we have it up. We're gonna run it back. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna get this macro, put it here, click on it, pull back all the way, and now okay. Next thing we're gonna do is get macro 3 and put it into our decay. Leave our decay at 12 o'clock, and then you're gonna pretty much click and draw all the way down. So this is what we're gonna call our our sustain, and then our decay. Okay, so that should give you those that freedom to change the sound. If you want the full sound, make sure they're all to the left. Okay, so once we have that, let's just put a little bit of another macro for the reverb. So let's lower the reverb down to 9. Should have done that before here. And we're going to put it to 12. Size down again to 10 o'clock. We're going to put macro 4 here as well and turn it all the way to around 1 o'clock. And there we go. Now we just call this a reverb. And we are pretty much done. Now, ways you can change the sound is you can start changing the oscillators. You can change the saw here all the way to the right. You can change the smooth square wave for another type of sound, a poly saw, another pulse saw PWM wave, which from the virtual analog section of Massive, and so much more. Just remember to get creative with these sounds, and I'll have this preset up, which is pretty much a template to creating those big room sounds, which you can fuck around with and hopefully get something unique. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching this tutorial. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, like my Facebook page, and I'll see you guys next week.